All right, welcome to This Week in Mediocrity, where we present you with all the best in the worst of the media. I'm your host, Joel Foster, and this week we stumbled into mutually assured destruction really quickly. Rejuvenated after a fresh bombing, Trump let it ride for another round this week by calling out North Korea, the world's version of a black sheep sibling. There he is. Trump finally figured out that he didn't need to put up a wall or sign a Muslim ban in order to be liked. He just needs to bomb people, then threaten to bomb other people, then bomb some other people. He probably thought bombing another country would be the one thing that he wouldn't get away with, but it turns out it's the only thing he gets away with. It started on Sunday when Trump deployed off the shores of North Korea the USS Carl Vinson, which sounds more like a baseball player from the 70s than an aircraft carrier. There's Carl. The deployment was in response to North Korean threats of testing a nuclear weapon. The U.S. said yesterday that they would launch airstrikes if North Korea goes through with the test. At the same time, the U.S. have targeted North Korea with 2 Tomahawk cruise missiles, which have become Trump's favorite toy, replacing his Samsung Galaxy. North Korea, in turn, said that they would hit the U.S. first with a nuclear weapon if there were any signs of a U.S. strike. In other words, it's 100 days into a Trump presidency. But it got me thinking about this question. Why is North Korea testing weapons now? In the past, when North Korea launches a test, it's been to get something like food or aid. This time, it seems different. So I Googled the question and it returned 3 articles. And let's say it didn't answer the question. The first article that I came across was from The Sun, a British paper owned by Rupert Murdoch, who owns Fox News, and also owns Top Billing in Your Nightmares. The headline reads, "What nuclear weapons does North Korea have, and who will Kim Jong-un's missiles target?" Which sounds like the worst game show ever invented. The subhead then says that Trump will solve it, like it's a level of a game he plays on his phone. So in the first paragraph of this article, it says that Kim Jong-un, seen here peeping through a neighbor's window, made it his mission to, quote, dramatically increase the amount of nukes in his control in less than a year. But to be fair, his other mission this year is to finish a whole deep dish pizza in one sitting. So we'll take that with a grain of salt. Moving on to the second article. This time it was from the New York Post, which is also owned by Rupert Murdoch. Are you seeing a pattern? It begins by saying China issued a blunt warning to North Korea on Wednesday, telling its belligerent ally to not conduct nuclear weapons or missile tests, or it was likely to face military action by the U.S. Luckily, they have the video footage of this exchange. Let's take a look. I'll see you at 3 o'clock on the quad, North Korea. The Post article goes on to quote the Chinese Communist Party when it says, quote, not only is Washington brimming with confidence and arrogance following the missile attacks on Syria, but Trump is also willing to be regarded as a man who honors his promises. Is he, though? Now, say what you will about communist China, but does a better term exist to describe Donald Trump right now than brimming with confidence and arrogance? Sure, they don't allow freedom of speech, but that is pure poetry. Would we all be able to write that good if they outlawed free speech? Because if so, sign me up, because I want a bestseller. Now, on to the third article from the notoriously truth-deprived British paper, The Daily Mirror. All right, so these are the headlines here. This is right in the headlines. Do these satellite images prove North Korea is preparing to detonate a new nuclear bomb to mark sinister Day of the Sun as Trump's armada moves in? U.S. officials fear that North Korea is planning to detonate another nuclear device. Reporters were told to prepare for a big event today. Tensions are high with North Korea, warning of a nuclear attack on the US of any sign of American aggression. That's just the headline. Somehow the paper sounds like a Korean mother talking to her high school dropout son. But I finally did get around to getting my question answered. So why did they launch missile tests now? Well, first off, think of it this way. The most harsh UN sanctions were placed on North Korea last January after another missile test around the time when Trump was golfing and having 5-minute-long handshakes with Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. With sanctions in effect, North Korea is like a frightened bear forced up against a wall, except a frightened bear with nuclear weapons. With a GDP less than a third of Ethiopia's, the only thing North Korea has at this point is nuclear weapons. Likely it also has to do with the new administration. They're testing Trump out, like a child testing the limits of a new babysitter. Because each leader has been different, and North Korea knows this. They signed a deal with the Bush administration in 2005 and agreed to give up its nuclear program in exchange for economic aid and political concessions. In 2008, they even destroyed a nuclear cooling tower as part of the deal. But it fell apart in 2009 under the new Obama administration, back when Obama was still a rookie. Ironically, the year Obama botched the deal was the same year he won the Nobel Peace Prize. In Obama's defense, North Korea ended up having a uranium enrichment facility that they forgot to mention. Whoops. They tried it again in 2012, but North Korea couldn't even last a year without their debilitating rocket launching habit. Then finally another deal in 2013, lasting until 2015. North Korea is like Andy Dick if you like to enrich uranium instead of snorting coke off of a real doll. But besides all that, much of the reason behind the tests has more to do with China than it does us. See, China doesn't want North Korea to collapse because then there would be a flood of refugees coming into China, which would destroy their economy. So it's in their best interest to keep things contained, whatever that might look like. So maybe this is a way to act out in order to get China to step in and take some kind of action. And I'm not saying that North Korea isn't scary. They've clearly been taught to hate us going back to the Korean War. Just look at this clip of a North Korean orchestra performing the song, this is real, "Death to the US Imperialist Aggressors." Let's take a look. All right, that's right. It's a little scary, but you gotta admit, that's some impressive propaganda. We really need to get Josh Groban on this stat. But do we really need to be afraid of North Korea? The answer is not really no. In fact, you should be more afraid of your own heart, which is way more likely to kill you. It's true, intelligence experts think that North Korea may have up to 10 nuclear weapons with enough nuclear material to make up about 100 weapons. They've also been testing nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles since 2006 and are said to be planning to test another nuclear weapon tomorrow. The last missile test in 2016 was their best yet. Experts say that they could now reach the US territory of Guam, which would be devastating because it would remind us all to ask, why do we own Guam? But the problem is that they can't fit an atomic bomb onto a missile because it's too large. They would need to miniaturize the bomb, which makes me hope that they never tried to kidnap Rick Moranis. According to the BBC, it would take 5 to 10 years for North Korea to develop an operational nuclear missile, and that's if they were left unconstrained to create the weapon, which we know isn't going to happen. Also, there's this to consider. Remember those ballistic missile tests I was just talking about? Well, out of 8 tests, they've only been successful once, last June. Not very good odds. And what if they launch it and it doesn't work and this happens? It'd be good. But what's the plan? What's the overall plan? It seems that both sides are focused on stopping the missile tests. But what happens if North Korea stops the tests? Do we just go back to doing what we did before? Something tells me not. And that something is over 100 years of American foreign policy, which pretty much adds up to invade first, ask questions later. Except the questions are never answered, they cost human lives, and they're really expensive. Without a doubt, war fever is back like it's 2002, and just like Nelly said back then, it's getting hot in her. I'm sure you've all heard of the Moab, or the mother of all bombs, which has been covered breathlessly in the media to the point where the Moab is considering a run for president in 2020. Stories about the Moab were basically pornographic. Here's Tucker Carlson getting all hot and heavy over that big, beautiful, explosive bomb.
Forget the puny explosion of a single Tomahawk missile. Today, the American military dropped the mother of all bombs. Literally, that's its name. The bomb dropped today on an ISIS tunnel complex in Afghanistan is the most powerful non-nuclear explosion ever in warfare. After the bombing, President Trump suggested the weapon's use says a lot about his administration in contrast to the previous one. Watch.
Everybody knows exactly.
Yeah, give me that thick shaft. Keep your hands where we can see them, Tucker. That's right, everybody loves Moab, from the Hillary folks on the left to the Trump trolls on the right. Isn't unity beautiful? And here's radio host Mark Levine's reaction to the Moab.
Everybody knows exactly what happened, so. And when I do that, I'm going to
get 1,100-pound GPS-guided bomb on ISIS in Afghanistan. It was like Christmas, Hanukkah. It was exciting.
Is it poor taste to compare the most destructive bomb of all time with the birth of Jesus? Sure, but this is wartime, and anything goes at wartime. But nothing beats this clip from a History Channel special on the Moab that makes you just want to go out and bomb everybody, just for the hell of it. Let's take a quick look.
You're about to witness the mother of all bombs. At least, that's what the Massive Ordnance Air Blast Bomb, or Moab, has been unofficially christened by its creators.
Well, it's tremendously powerful.
This particular weapon is the largest conventional weapon ever built in the sense of the amount of explosive being carried.
As the largest ever satellite-guided air-delivered weapon in history, the Moab is big on firepower. This 30-foot monster weighs more than 21,000 pounds and carries close to 10 tons of H6 explosive.
When they were testing it, people actually thought they were testing small-scale nuclear devices.
Pound for pound, this is less efficient than multiple smaller detonations. But the sheer destructive force of one huge blast, plus the psychological effect of the nuclear-style mushroom cloud, is undeniable.
Good job.
So sexy. If you were listening at the end there, you might have noticed that they said the Moab isn't as efficient as multiple smaller bombs. That's right, it actually makes more sense to launch smaller bombs because of the lighter weight and increased control over the weapon. Then why did we launch the gigantic missile? Because it's badass. Tucker Carlson was right about the launch, saying that there was something about the Trump administration. Trump is completely dependent upon image, and if people like the image of a giant bomb going off, then he's going to launch a bunch of big bombs, whether they deserve it or not. So we need to be careful about not to get carried away with this. War fever is fun while it lasts. But much like a drunk who has to get his car out of the tow yard and apologize to his friends the next morning, we need to rebuild the countries after we bomb them, or else they grow to hate us. Then we have to go to war with them again. Then you get it. All right, that's all the time I got for today. Keep your eyes, ears, and hearts open, and I'll see you next week. Have a great and peaceful weekend.